Hi guys, my name is Daniel Alvers and I work on HyperDesk 1.0 alongside Rochelle Topkis. And so this video is basically going to be me explaining to you how to basically set up the project so that you guys can start working on HyperDesk 2.0 or whatever revision you're on. So to start off, this is basically the things that we're going to need. Starting with Node.js. Now, obviously, Node.js is the backbone of the entire application because that's what our server is based on. So we're going to need to install Node.js. So let's go to nodejs.org. Um, Installation is fairly straightforward. If you're on Windows, it'll default to Windows. If you're on Mac, it'll default to the Mac installation. Just download it, run the executable for Windows, and then it should add Node.js to your path. And for Mac, the installation is a little bit different, but uh, it's basically its own version of an installer, the Mac installer. So once it does that, it will also add the Node.js to your path, and it'll also install the npm module. So test it out after you've downloaded it and installed that you do have Node in your path by basically opening PowerShell or Terminal if you're on Mac, then running Node dash dash version. And then if it works, you should see whatever version is the latest one when you install it. And then we can check if npm is working properly. Okay, so that's what's going to happen when you guys install it. You're going to have both of these available to you globally, which is what we want because we're going to be using npm to install some packages later, and obviously Node so that we can run the server and actually work on it. So once we do that, we're going to want to install MongoDB because that's the database that we're using. It's a NoSQL database. So we go to MongoDB. I think it's .org. Yeah, okay. So basically, we just repeat what we did with Node.js and download it for Windows or Mac, run the installer, and then it should add the Mongo variables to your path. Once that's done, we're going to want to verify that they are added. So we're going to run Mongodb, and that's going to basically start up the database server. So we'll see, this basically shows you everything that's going on, every addition that's made to it, every connection. But if you want to actually modify that database, we'll open up another terminal. And so here we have our server running for the database. And then here we're going to have the client running. So you can connect to the database and then make modifications to the database. If you want to see what databases you have, you can just type in show DBs, and again you can look at the documentation and they'll have like all of the basic commands and stuff like that. I certainly had to look through it to learn a lot of stuff, but it's very straightforward and it's very intuitive. So you'll notice that I have a local, everybody installation comes with local DB, and then you can make your own. So our project, so HyperDesk before it became HyperDesk, it was called ShareSpace. So originally the database that we use is ShareSpace, and we just never changed it. But so you guys are gonna want to create your own database. So you're gonna just type in use HyperDesk, and then that's it. It'll create the database basically. You don't have to worry about adding any, um, I guess, data to the database as of now, or at least not through the terminal, um, because one, it's not very practical since there's a lot of things that you need to add, like username, password, and a bunch of stuff. So it's better to just do that through the client. Once you've installed everything and and the website is running, you can just create users through there, the way that we've developed it, and it's just a lot easier. Another thing that you can do is download something called RoboMongo. And RoboMongo is basically a GUI that lets you do everything that you can do through the terminal, but just do it through a GUI. And this basically simplifies, um, any modifications that you want to do to the database. Uh, I don't recommend making any modifications to the database through here because there are certain things that need to be enforced by the schemas. So like when somebody registers, their password needs to be hashed, and well, you're not going to be adding a hashed password manually because it's a bunch of gibberish, right? So you're not just going to type in a bunch of gibberish because regardless, it's not going to be the right hash password. So I'll show you if you want to switch databases. We'll go to the one that I created previously, so share space. You can do like show collections, and then it'll tell you all the tables. So these are all the tables for HyperDesk. And then if I want to see all of the users, in my app that have registered so far, you can just say db.users.find, and then this is going to look like gibberish. So you want to do db.users.find.pretty, and then that formats it nicely so you can look at it better. Okay, so if you don't want to do this mess with the terminal, it's pretty straightforward. I recommend that you learn it. But if you don't want to, you can just use RoboMongo because honestly, I mean, a lot of people use this and it's very helpful. Okay, so now that that's done, next up, we want to go ahead and install either an IDE or a text editor. If you choose to go the text editor route, which is fine, completely fine. I use Sublime Text 3, so that's what I recommend because I'm most familiar with it, and it just has a bunch of plugins that'll help you out. So it'll help you with things like a linter, so syntax errors, things like that. Um, you can go ahead and do that. I do recommend, however, using an IDE because for a large project, it's just a lot more useful when it comes to refactoring things. So if, for example, you decide to change the name of a file and you do it through Sublime, then you're gonna have to change the name of the file and then every single reference to that file in your code manually. Whereas if you use an IDE and you change the name of a file, you're going to be refactoring it. So the IDE will look through your entire project, find any reference to the file that you're renaming, and then rename it for you in all of those files. So you don't have to do that manually. And that's just one of the positives of using an IDE. There are multiple, so I recommend it. The one that I'm using is Webstorm. So to download it, again, very straightforward. Follow the installation instructions. This is not free, but if you're a student, then you get it free for a year. It's definitely worth it to use it. It doesn't take much to get the student license. So you're gonna download it, and then once you download it and you install it, the first time you run it, it's gonna ask you to basically either add your license or to log in with your JetBrains account. So in order to get your student JetBrains account, just go to, let's see, student. Okay, so go to jetbrains.com/student. So basically, you're just gonna apply, give your uh, university email address, your student name, last name, and then your FIU email. Once you do that, you'll get a confirmation saying that you're approved to download basically all of their products for free and use them for about a year. And you have to keep renewing it. As long as you're a student, you have to keep renewing it for a year. Um, so once you do that and it's installed, then the first time you run it and it asks you for your email, for your JetBrains email, or the account email, I'm sorry, you're going to type in the one that you signed up with. So let's go ahead and run WebStorm. Oops, there we go. Okay, so now we're going to actually import the project so we can actually work on it. This is the root directory on GitHub right here. If you'll notice, I only have the code folder right now. We're going to upload several things after this video is done, actually. So you'll see multiple folders. When you clone this repository, you're going to get the code folder and you're going to get a bunch of stuff, but we're going to be working mainly in the code folder. Any changes that you've made to like the installation file, things like that, you're gonna want to make in the other subfolders, and then commit the changes, and it's just a lot easier. So anytime you make a change, you commit it, and then it'll update it here. So this is the link that we're going to be cloning. So let's go ahead and copy that. We go back to Webstorm, and then you're going to see checkout from version control. So you click that, select GitHub. It's going to ask you for a password. The first time that you do this, you're going to have to set up a password. So this is basically WebStorm's password for whenever you want to commit anything to version control, just to make sure that it's you. You type in the password, um, and then you can go ahead and push whatever changes you've made to your remote repository. So this right here. So I've already set that up. So we'll type that in, select OK. Okay, and then here we can basically paste the link that we copied, and we will verify that the parent directory is okay. So your parent directory is going to be different. It'll probably be user slash your name and then Webstorm projects. That's fine. Leave it the default one, and then change the name to whatever you want. So for this example, we'll just use HyperDesk, and we clone the repository. Give it some time because we do have a lot of um, files, and one of them is a video, like a fairly long video, so it might take a little while, depending on your connection. Okay, so would you like to open the directory? Yes, we would. Okay, so now that this has basically cloned the repository, we're almost ready to start working on it. Right off the bat, you'll see the code uh, folder that we saw on our GitHub repository, and it's right here. So you're going to be working in here, basically. Something important to know, whenever you commit anything to your remote repository, so to GitHub, this is basically what you're going to want to upload. As far as code is concerned, if you do, obviously, if you change other stuff, that's fine too. But this is what you want to upload to GitHub. No extra files. Um, you're going to see in a little bit when we install our modules, we're going to have another file here called uh, node modules. You need to exclude that from what you're uploading, because that's a huge folder with all of the external libraries, and frankly it's unnecessary because somebody can just install the libraries on their own using the package.json file. So what package.json is, it's basically a file that describes the structure of your project. So it has a name, and then under dependencies it'll have every single module that you're going to be using in your project. So without these dependencies, your project's not going to run. And so right now we don't have those modules installed, but we do have the package.json, and that tells our application what the dependencies are. And so in order to install this, uh, we can just go ahead and open up the terminal right down here. So this is a useful feature for WebStorm. It has its own terminal. You can open your own terminal window if you like. And so you'll notice that we're in HyperDesk, but package.json is in code. Um, and so we're going to want to npm install. Uh, if you run npm install, it'll basically look for the package.json file, and it'll find this dependencies object, and then it'll install every single one of the dependencies automatically for you. So you don't even have to worry about it. You just have to do npm install, it does it for you. Obviously, if you do it here, it's not going to work because it's not going to find. See, it's okay, so it's not going to find the package.json, so you need to go to hyperdesk /code. Once you do that, we can do npm install. It should work fine this time. Okay, so that's going to take a little while because it's going to download everything. In the meantime, I guess I'll show you guys. App.js is the main entry point for a Node.js application. Obviously, you can change that in the configuration, but for our purposes and your purposes, you're not going to need to do that unless you make some modifications that require that, but I don't foresee that. So basically, you'll notice that, let me minimize this. Okay, so everything's done installing. And you'll notice that now we have a node modules folder. Okay, and so okay, so here it is, the node modules. Um, this is every single, and not okay, so every single thing that you had in your package.json plus a bunch of other stuff that I guess are just installed by default in case you use it. And so that's why you don't want to ever uh, include this in your. And you'll see that it's grayed out because we don't want to include this in our Git. We're not going to commit this because it's redundant. And so you'll see that in our Git ignore, basically we're ignoring this, ignoring the idea folder, and then you can add you can add the node modules folder to this list, and then that way it won't commit it. Okay, so back to app.js. What app.js is the main entry point for the application. So every file that you create, whether it's a route, so these are basically our controllers right here, whether it's a route or it's a model, you're going to want to require in whatever file is going to make use of it. So obviously our main entry point is going to make use of our routes, I'm sorry, because that's basically our controller. So you'll notice here that we're requiring every single one of these in here, right? And so that's telling the application um, when somebody tries to navigate to um, whatever the website address is, slash, so slash is the main one, right? And then so if they want to navigate to slash login, then it's going to use login, the login controller, which we declared up here. We said login is equal to require uh, route slash login. So when somebody goes to uh, the website address slash login, it'll handle that according to whatever code was written here. Okay, so in our login route, for example, um, we're requiring the user model. Um, Now, we're doing this because when somebody logs in, they need to verify their information, and all of that is done in the user model. So you'll find the user model here. This is basically all of the methods and the schema. And then you'll notice at the end, or all of these actually, you're saying module.exports.update full name. So this is basically a function that you're exposing to whatever file requires this file. So if I say module.exports.update full name is equal to this function, and this function takes these parameters, then over here in the login route, you'll notice that I'm saying var user is equal to require and then models slash user, so that file that we just saw. If I wanted to use that function, then all I would have to do is say user dot update, and then this is what I love about Webstorm, that it'll just tell you everything. It'll look across all the files in your project, and it'll find basically all of the methods that are available to you. So for user, we required the user model, and user model has all of these methods that we can use. So that's the basics of what requires. It's basically the equivalent of like the Java import statement. So if you're going to use a library in Java, you need to import it, right? So that's basically the same thing. Okay, so once that's done, then we can go ahead and minimize this. Um, we're going to want to install also a Sass transpiler. And so basically, for those of you that don't know what a CSS is, it's a language that lets you style the HTML. So, if you want to, I don't know, increase margins or change the color of something, it's all done through CSS. So that's gonna be here on in our style sheets. So CSS, and then we have Sass. So what Sass is, it's basically an extension of CSS. Um, it's a lot better than CSS because you can do things that you can't do through CSS, like um, create functions or import things like this. So, for example, here I'm saying import search, because style CSS at the end of your modifications gets compiled or transpiled, actually transpiled into style.css. So this is Sass. Once it's transpiled, it gets converted into this. So you never want to modify the CSS files themselves. You only want to modify the style, I mean the .scss files. And so what I do is basically if I'm working on the home page, then I will create this underscore home.scss. I will add my Sass to it, and then in style I import it because this is the only file that gets compiled to style.css. So you need to import it here. So we're saying import home, and then it knows to look for to grab the home file, the underscore home file, and then import it. And then when it compiles, everything that's in the home and all of these will also be in style.css. In order for this to work, we need to install, and you'll see the notification here telling you you need to install a file watcher. And so that's basically what we're going to do. Um, the one I'm using is Compass. So let's go to, okay, so compassstyle.org. Now to install this, just again follow the documentation. And actually this, let's see. Okay, yeah, perfect. So it'll tell you how to set up a bunch of stuff. So you need to install Ruby. Um, Go to the Ruby website, download that, install it. Once you've done that, come back here, run this, and then just in general, go through with this. And then once you've done that, you can, let's see, you're gonna want to add it to Webstorm. And so, okay, so once you have installed Compass, just Google, setup Compass in Webstorm, and then this is basically the first link. Just follow this right here, and this you'll notice here the same notification that we got. You just configure it, and then once it's done configuring, it'll create this config.rb folder, and so you need to type in what the CSS directory is, and what file it is that you're going to actually be converting to to the style.css. So follow these instructions. I'm sure they did a much better job of explaining it than I did. Once that's done, um, this right here, well, I guess we do need GitHub. So if you haven't installed Git, well, not GitHub, Git, you're definitely gonna want to install that. So go to git-scm.com, download it for whatever machine you're using. Then once that's done, the good thing about WebStorm is you have a version control integration. So you can just select this and then go to Git, commit the entire directory. Obviously, okay, no changes, so it's not letting us commit anything because we haven't changed anything. But that's basically what you want to do to commit your changes locally. And then once you've committed your changes locally, you can go right click and then Git again, and then you'll have more options down here. You'll have like a push option. So okay, see, so you'll see push up here, and then once you push, you're gonna configure your Git account to WebStorm, and then it'll just push all of your changes up to whatever repository you set up. If you don't want to deal with the WebStorm version control system, then you're going to want to use something like source tree. This is basically what I use because it's so much more, um, I guess, robust. It has a lot more features that WebStorm doesn't. So you can add multiple remote branches, just a bunch of stuff. So I definitely recommend using source tree. So that basically, I guess, concludes this installation guide. If you have any questions, just refer to the installation um, PowerPoint that I'm going to make for you guys. I'm gonna basically provide a step-by-step instruction in there as well. So yeah, you should be good to go.